Hello, grade 2. Today we will continue learning about how Jesus showed mercy by healing many people, and we're going to also skip over to Unit 29, which is a unit about Easter. Last week, we learned how Jesus showed mercy to the blind men by healing them right away. Today we are going to continue learning about how Jesus showed his power and mercy by healing other people. Let's read Mark chapter 1, verses 40 through 45. A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus was indignant. He reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. Jesus sent him away at once with strong warning. "See that you don't tell this to anyone. But go, show yourself to the priests and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing, as a testimony to them." Instead, he went out and began to talk freely, spreading the news. As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in lonely places. Yet the people still came to him from everywhere. In this story, Jesus healed a man with leprosy. Leprosy is a terrible disease, and basically your body parts are rotting if you are a leper. Let's go over the story one more time with pictures. One day when Jesus was in Galilee, a man with leprosy came to him and begged Jesus to heal him. Jesus had compassion, love, and pity for the man, and he instantly healed him. Immediately the leprosy disappeared and the man was healed. Jesus told him not to tell others about this, but to go to the local priest and tell him what had happened and offer a gift to God. I want you to understand, but these lepers were often treated badly, kicked out of their towns, and ignored because of their disease. But when Jesus saw this man, he had mercy on him and was not afraid to touch him. And he accepted him and he did not ignore him. And he immediately healed him. Not only is Jesus omnipotent, meaning all-powerful, but he is also showing mercy, which means kindness and compassion. Let's read another story about Jesus healing the sick. John chapter 5, verses 2 through 9. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day on which this took place was a Sabbath. Let's go over the story one more time with pictures. One day, Jesus was in the city of Jerusalem, and he passed by the pool of Bethesda. Many sick, blind, lame, and paralyzed people waited by the pool. They went there so that they could go into the water when it began to bubble. So that's what they mean when the water stirred. On the day that Jesus passed by the pool, he saw a man lying there who had been sick and weak for 38 years. And Jesus knew how long the man had been sick, so he asked him, "Would you like to be made well?" And the man answered, "I cannot get well because I don't have anyone to help me get into the bubbling water." Then Jesus said to the man, "Stand up, pick up your sleeping mat and walk." And instantly the sick man was healed. He rolled up his mat and began walking. This showed Jesus' power and mercy. Now that we read about the 2 stories, let's go to our Bible book, page 102. Page 102. Read Mark chapter 1 verses 40 through 45 and John chapter 5 2 to 9. Imagine that you are the leper or the sick man at the pool. Write a letter to thank Jesus for healing you. Answer these questions. What was your life like before Jesus healed you? What did he do when he healed you? How did it make you feel? So we already read the stories in Mark chapter 1 and John chapter 5. And it was a story about how Jesus healed a leper and the sick man at the pool. So what you're going to do is you're going to imagine that you are one of those men, the person who had the leper or the person who was sick at the pool. Remember, the man with the leprosy and the sick man at the pool had been sick for a long time and there were nobody else to take care of them for those many years. So maybe you were lonely and you were very sad and in pain the whole time. Not just for 1 year, but for many, many years. And then you're going to write a letter to thank Jesus for healing you. And you're going to answer these questions as you write the letter. What was your life like before Jesus healed you? What did he do when he healed you? How did it make you feel? Imagine you are the person who has leprosy or you are the sick man at the pool. And then write this letter. Now we're going to swiftly move on to this week's lesson, which will be about Easter. Before we go on any further, we have to review the meaning of two important words, prophecy and Passover. Let's look into our glossary. Both the words prophecy and Passover begin with P. Here we are at P, Passover, when the Hebrew people were passed over from harm by following God's instructions during the 10th plague. That's the last plague. Prophecy, a message or instructions given directly by God to a prophet and told about something that would happen in the future. And remember, prophet is someone who has special knowledge from God. So, prophecy is a message or instruction given directly by God to a prophet and told about something that would happen in the future. So it's a message from God about the future. And Passover is when the Hebrew people were passed over from harm by following God's instructions from the 10th plague. So Passover is a time when the Hebrews were saved from the 10th plague by following God's instructions. And they had to take a lamb and use its blood to paint the doorposts, then roast the lamb meat and eat it quickly with unleavened bread, which is bread without yeast. So the bread would be flat. And you were supposed to eat with your cloak tucked into your belt, with your sandals on, and your staff in your hand. And the Israelites were passed over from harm by following these instructions from God. The Israelites still celebrate the Passover as an important day of celebration. And people would gather together every year to celebrate Passover. They would have a feast and eat this flat bread, called matzah, with different herbs and wine. In the beginning part of the story of Easter, Jesus is heading into Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover, and people are gathering together to praise him as he enters the city. Now I want you to pause this video and go watch the two videos that I linked in the emails today. One should be about the triumphal entry, which is about how Jesus is entering Jerusalem for the Passover. And the other video is about the Last Supper, where Jesus washes his disciples' feet. When you're done with watching the video, you can now move on to page 113, which is going to be about Easter. So for numbers 1 through 7, you're going to match each clue with a word from the word bank right here. Copy each letter on a shaded line on the palm branch to cover what the people shouted when Jesus made his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. So you're going to match each clue with the word from the word bank. So you're going to write down the word correctly. And then copy each letter, these letters that are shaded, into this palm branch. and find out what people shouted when Jesus made his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. So let's begin. Number 1. Written about the future. Which word means written about the future? Is it branches, donkey, Jerusalem, prophecy, Passover, praises, or crowd? We learned the word prophecy today, which is a message from God about the future. So that means number 1 is prophecy. Number 2, a large group of people. What is a large group of people? Is it branches, donkey, Jerusalem, prophecy, Passover, praises, or crowd? The correct answer is crowd. Number 3, a Jewish holiday. We just talked about it in our lesson today, that the Jewish celebrate this certain holiday about the Passover. Number 4, the city in Israel where Jesus was going. What city was Jesus entering? The city's name was Jerusalem. Number 5, tree limbs are called what? Tree limbs means like a body part of a tree. So that would be branches. I want you to finish the rest on your own. Once you're done, you can put these letters in the shaded line in correct order on this palm branch. Then you'll be able to find out what people shouted when Jesus made his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. Let's move on to number 9. You're going to unscramble the letters to complete the sentence. Number 9, when Jesus washed his disciples' feet, he was giving them an example of how to blank and joyfully blank blank. So in the second video, you should have watched how Jesus washed his disciples' feet during the Last Supper. During Jesus' time, people wore sandals or went barefoot. So everyone's feet were very dirty after a day of walking everywhere. It was normally the job of the youngest or most lowly servant in the house to wash people's feet. But Jesus chose to wash his disciples' feet even though he was the Son of God. By this action, Jesus showed to his disciples that they need to love and serve others. Just like Jesus, we also need to love and serve others. What can you do to follow Jesus' example of love and service in your life? I want you to think about that and try your best to remember to show love and serve your family members throughout your day today. So back to number 9. When Jesus washed his disciples' feet, he was giving them an example of how to do what? O-L-E-V would be unscrambled into love. To love and joyfully blank blank. I want you to figure these out on your own, and let's move on to the next page. Page 114. You're going to read the paragraph about Jesus' last meal and then answer the questions below. Let's read this together. Jesus knew that his time on earth with the disciples was coming to an end. He wanted to give them a way to remember him because he would soon go back to heaven. Jesus took some of the bread from the table. He broke the bread and blessed it. Then he gave a piece of bread to each of the disciples to eat. Jesus explained that the bread was like his body. He said that he would soon die for their sins. Then Jesus took a cup of wine. He shared it with the disciples and explained that the wine was like his blood. He was going to shed his blood for them so that they could be forgiven from all their sins. You can stop this video for now and go watch the third video that I linked in your email. Once you're done watching, you can come back and work on page 114. Well, that's the lesson for today. We learned about how Jesus showed mercy and he also taught his disciples how to serve and love others. I want you to think about, as Christians, of how to show love and serve others throughout your day today. Well, that's it for today. Bye, everyone.